Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're cracking open a pretty fascinating time capsule. We spend so much time lately talking about algorithms, neural networks, and the future of AI, right? We act as if we're the very first generation to ever grapple with these massive concepts. But actually, scratch that. Today, I really want to take you back in time. I'm going to tell you a story. It's a firsthand account from Octavio Bez Hidalgo, and honestly, it completely reframes how we think about tech history. Think of it kind of like a campfire story for the digital age. It details this amazing conversation between a group of computer programmers that went down way back in 1977. We're going to look at what they got right, what they debated, and how one absolute legendary punchline brought the whole conversation crashing back down to earth. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. I really want you to put yourselves in the shoes of these programmers. Octavio sets the scene with this brilliant quote. One afternoon of the many in which the programs we developed took hours and even days to produce results. I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. Nowadays, we get totally frustrated if a web page takes, more than 3 seconds to load, or if our AI prompt takes 10 seconds to spit out an image. But back in 1977, computing was an exercise in extreme patience. You'd write your code, feed it into the machine, and then literally just wait for hours or even days for the output. And what do highly intelligent, pioneering tech workers do when they're stuck waiting for a machine to think? Well, they gather around the computer and they start talking. And that exact downtime led to a really profound conversation. Moving on to Section 1, Predicting the Informatics Future. So, during this specific conversation, they were throwing around a term that was super popular back then, informatics. As Octavio describes it, they used this word to conceptualize a future where computing wouldn't just be locked away in giant mainframes doing math in some laboratory basement. No, they envisioned a future where computing would penetrate the absolute entire field of human endeavor. It's a beautifully broad definition, right? But what's truly amazing is just how specific they got when trying to imagine what this informatics revolution would actually look like in practice. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how impossibly accurate these guys were. Remember, this is 1977. Personal computers aren't even a household reality yet. But while they're just killing time waiting for their code to compile, they predicted that computing would eventually supply its own complex activities. They specifically talked about computers driving cars. I mean, no way, right? They talked about controlling manufacturing processes and automating deeply complex human activities. And perhaps most presciently, they debated how robots might relegate humans from many work activities. As Octavio notes in his account, looking back after 50-plus years, to a greater or lesser degree, every single thing on this list has been achieved or is actively being achieved right now. They saw the blueprint of the 21st century decades before it actually arrived. But, the conversation didn't just stay on what the technology would do. It shifted into something much more philosophical. Which brings us to Section 2, Artificial versus Biological Intelligence. And this brilliantly illustrates the core debate they had. The group fell into that classic theme of robots. Would they be humanoid, mechanical? But above all, they debated the internal mechanisms these machines would possess, the so-called artificial intelligence. Now, Octavio points out a crucial distinction that he maintained back then and honestly still holds today. He really emphasizes the word artificial. On the left side here, we see AI represented by mathematical theories, just lines and circles on a screen. But on the right, we have human intelligence, real biological neurons, and wildly complex synapse communication. Octavio argued that nothing developed through mathematical theories even remotely resembles a true biological neuron. He actually expressed some deep skepticism about how AI was being conceptualized at the time. He wrote about sitting through these mathematical physicist dissertations where the presenter would say something like, "Here we have a neuron, and here we see the neural links," while literally just pointing at a screen. Octavio's reaction? "I only see lines and circles on the screen. Wow, apparently no one of them really knows the real biological neurons are working." He felt that these researchers didn't truly grasp how biological neurons actually function throughout the intricate network of the human brain and body. To him, the math didn't even come close to the biological reality. So after hours and hours of this deeply technical, highly philosophical debate about artificial synapses and the future of automated labor, we finally reached the climax of this incredible afternoon. Section 3. The ultimate human robot. Enter Lewis. Lewis was a mathematician in the group. After listening to his colleagues go back and forth about mechanical robots and artificial intelligence for literally hours, Lewis finally speaks up. With absolute aplomb and total seriousness, he looks at the group and says, "They're you who have not done it yet because I already did mine, and I can tell you how to do them too," directly referring to building robots. Well, the room just goes dead quiet. Octavio describes the group as completely perplexed and totally incredulous. They're all just looking at each other, silently thinking, okay, Lewis has finally lost it. What does he mean he already built his robots? And then, with the timing of an absolute master comedian, Lewis snaps at them, have children like me. I already have two. So, the crucial point is right here. Octavio writes, believe that our laughter reached the moon. And just like that, boom, the tension of predicting a totally automated future, the heavy philosophical debate about whether a circle on a screen can ever match the majesty of the human brain, it all just dissolved into roaring human laughter. It was literally the ultimate dad joke, delivered precisely when the conversation had gotten just a little too heavily focused on machines. It brought them right back down to their shared humanity. As Octavio concluded, and so we were talking about robots in 1977. It's such an amazing story because it shows us that while our tools have exponentially evolved, the core questions we ask about them, they remain exactly the same. We still debate what constitutes a true neural network. We still worry about automated labor. But Luis's joke reminds us of the profound biological reality of human creation that a machine simply cannot replicate. Which brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with today. After 50+ years of staggering AI advancements, since those programmers sat waiting for their code to run, what still truly separates our biological minds from the machines? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.